LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith have been taking shots back and forth at each other all year, with this all starting when Stephen A. begged and pleaded to LeBron as a father to stop putting his kid in the spotlight.
I am pleading with LeBron James as a father. Stop this. Stop this. We all know that Bronny James is in the NBA because of his dad.
And as of yesterday, things escalated. Stephen A. would later confirm that it was Bronny that LeBron was confronting him about, saying essentially, just keep my son out of this. Normally, I wouldn't cover something like that here. That's more of a Little Rusty Buckets video. That's what that channel's for. But this is different. We've seen LeBron confront a media member directly to his face for, I believe this is the first time. And he's been in the public spotlight for 25 damn years. So clearly there is a level of escalation here, and there's been a whole lot of discourse about this. So let's go ahead and get into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video. We've had some serious momentum on the channel lately, both in terms of viewership, but especially in terms of subscriber growth. So if you would like to join the Rusty Buckets family, as it were, I think we might actually put a serious sub goal on here. I'm wondering if I should go for shoot for the stars to get to 200K by the end of the year, but 150 is probably more realistic. But anyways, if you end up enjoying this video, you'd probably like my other ones. So there's a couple of reasons why I want to talk about this. It's mostly the relationship between media and players and the way that Stephen A. Smith has blurred that line over the last couple of years. The first thing I want to do is highlight how Stephen A. responded to this whole situation.
Billy took exception to some of the things that he heard me say, and he confronted me about it. For the record, his agent and friend, Rich Paul, has my number. Maverick Carter, who works under him, has my number. LeBron James knows how to get in contact with me if he wanted to. He never called, because had he called and wanted to talk to me, I would have accepted that call. Had he wanted to see me, I would have flown out and I would have seen him and I would have had a conversation man to man. But that is not what he elected to do.
So here's the problem with what Stephen A. just said. And it's not that just that he's getting mad about the criticism of the confrontation happening publicly. It's not just that aspect of it. It's because he fucking lied. He just straight up lied in this clip by saying that no one from LeBron's camp reached out to him.
And I felt the need to elaborate even further because a couple of people text me and pissed me off, and they know who they are. People close to LeBron James talking to me about questioning him as a father. Come on, y'all.
Despite literally just mentioning the people who are LeBron's friends and family who have contacted him, and right after doing that, he just immediately goes right into criticizing him as a father again on his other show, essentially just double dipping and doing the same shit twice, just on different networks, which I guess is, I would say that's a good content strategy, but your content strategy is about how much you're criticizing a man as a father. He got caught in a lie, for one. So that's the obvious problem. But, you know, what does he care, really? That's never been a problem for him or his career. But the thing that really gets to me is just, why is that your response to the situation? You think you have a right to be upset about the forum in which this confrontation went down, but you didn't want to get embarrassed publicly, but you are the one who started this whole thing by what you said publicly, and it was everything that everyone was talking about when it happened at the time. So you get to publicly criticize LeBron, but he doesn't get to publicly give you shit and say fuck off for it. I think that's a pretty fairly even exchange. You can't dish it and not be willing to take it. Sorry that you pissed your pants when you actually stared in the face of the 6'9", 250-pound man that you're just blasting his name constantly. But yeah, this is just the way the confrontation works. You started it, buddy. This is the way it goes. LeBron is a father. And while rich dads who just go out of the way for their kid constantly can be a very detrimental thing to this world, I do not think that LeBron and Bronny's situation is an example of that. As much as I love to use the NBA landscape as a way to get people to understand the dynamics of like workplace relationships, the 15th spot on an NBA roster is very far from an important thing for us to be arguing about constantly in the grand scheme of things. So we'll get more into Bronny in a second here. I think LeBron is allowed to be a little irrational about his child. And I'm not just talking about the confrontation here, but I'm also talking about like LeBron hyping him up coming into the NBA, saying, oh, LeBron is so much better than so many of these NBA guys. You know, that's cringe. You shouldn't have done it. You know, it would be better that he didn't do that than he does. But show me a father who's not cringe about how much they love their kid, and I'll show you a father who's not very present. That's just kind of the way that it goes. Again, I feel like so many aspects of this thing is just, duh, are you dumb? What I personally would have found most insulting in LeBron's shoes is the idea that he didn't think of the consequences here, that Bronny didn't think about the consequences here. Just because he's young, he's incapable of doing it. As though the upbringing that Bronny has had has not been essentially a crash course in how to deal with mass media. Like, his dad is LeBron James. He's like the most PR trained human being of all time. He's one of the most scrutinized people in human history, straight up, when you just consider the volume that is associated with the social media era. LeBron knew that he's LeBron James' kid. You know what attention that brings. He knows that. He knew it. Bronny knew it. They were well aware of the situation they were getting themselves into. And the way that Stephen A. in the original clip talks about it, like he's the first person who ever would have drawn this conclusion. No shit. LeBron has pondered whether or not they should do this. No shit, Bronny has too. And they've insisted time and time again that this is something that they decided they both want to do. And I'm inclined to believe them. If it turns out that LeBron has just been abusing Bronny into being an NBA player just so that he can put it as another fun anecdote about his career, well, then you got me. But I'm willing to bet it's not some outlandish shit like that. Steven says, like, he's LeBron James's kid. You know what attention that brings. Yeah, he does. But you know why he knows what attention that brings? Because you and your dickish colleagues have been bringing this level of attention to every fart that ever comes out of his ass for the last 20 years. You guys have been basically harassing the guy for his entire career. A level of attention and a level of dissection of every little move that he makes that is outright inhuman and shitty. And you, the man who perpetuates the exact system that makes LeBron's kid being in the league a huge problem, using that very system as a way to criticize him is fucking annoying. I'm going to use this term, and I mean it very seriously. At what point is this fucking victim blaming to put this on LeBron if you're the guy who's going to be doing the criticism of his kid? Just like, oh, you know I'm going to be a dick and harass your son. Why would you bring him here if you knew I was going to be a dick and harass your son? It doesn't really seem like that's on LeBron. It kind of seems like that's on the NBA media for being shitty as it is, and rather than allowing the pressure of the overwhelmingly negative NBA media to get to his head, to get to his son's head, to stop them from pursuing this dream they have. Instead, they said, yeah, we're going to block out of the noise and not give a shit what Stephen A. Smith has to say. But, of course, Stephen A. crossed a fucking line when he talked about the guy as a father. LeBron's dealt with this shit forever, so he is numb to it, but he also knows all of the negative things that it brought to his life. So I would understand a lot of people who deal with very bad shit, they can handle it happening to themselves, but the moment that that shit happens to a loved one, it's not cool anymore. It's not something you can passively accept. You know, people should love themselves and stand up for themselves more than they do, but they don't. You usually do that for someone exterior to yourself. So LeBron, having the knowledge, the history, knowing what it feels like at your core to be on the receiving end of that type of criticism, it probably really hurts and strikes a chord for him to see this happen with Bronny. But it's one thing to criticize him as a basketball player. I don't think LeBron has any issue with anybody criticizing Bronny as a basketball player. But criticizing him on the merit, on the argument that he just does not belong in the NBA and that LeBron is just outright forcing him to be in the NBA, well, that's crossing a line beyond the basketball conversation. That's bringing it into something personal. And you can say, all respect, I mean no disrespect going into it all you want, but if you follow I mean no disrespect with a disrespectful statement, you didn't just magically get rid of it. You can't say no homo and then make out with your homies and then it's not gay. I'm sorry to tell you, but it was homo, even if you said no homo. I don't know if that was the best choice of metaphor. Like, criticizing him as a father is immediately personal. There is no way to avoid it. Saying it's respectful, respectfully, Stephen A. Smith, I really, truly believe this with just the utmost respect, but you're a fucking hack who's completely ruined the sports industry, and you've made it much, much worse, and the reactionary, terrible culture that you are saying LeBron should have looked out for his kid with, you are exactly, dramatically responsible for that, more than maybe any other individual in sports media history is, and you're a piece of shit, and I don't like you. Respectfully, sir, just to be respectful. I meant no disrespect throughout any of that, you know, just had to let you know how I feel about you and your personal life and your situation. As an analyst, you should not have personal beef with NBA players. That shouldn't be a situation that's happening ever, let alone to the level in which it has with Stephen A. throughout his career. So many times, Stephen A. Smith was the story because he made himself the story by having some sort of drama, some sort of interaction with an NBA player. And on one hand, I guess I can give him some level of credit for cultivating his career as successfully as he did. But frankly, it sucks and it's terrible. You cannot hold yourself up like you're the same as these NBA players just because you're an associated industry. Like, ESPN pays you $25 million to be a clown. They pay you $25 million to be on a camera all the time, jingling keys and numbing the brains of the average sports fan day by day. You are not a professional athlete. You do not understand criticism and the pressures associated just because you're very famous. You're not LeBron famous. You're not face of the league famous. And you're talking about these things as though your experience in that realm brings that to the table. I wouldn't do such a thing. No one with any reason would do such a thing. I can't talk to Stephen A. Smith like I'm famous because by contrast, I'm fucking not. But I do know how to talk about sports, and I know how to be respectful. I know how to not cross lines. And that's a pretty key distinction between the two of us because Steven does all of that shit. I don't even @, players in tweets. I don't know why you would do that. Like, if I'm ever going to talk about a player beyond their on-the-court production or, like, the occasional soundbite, them just being charismatic or whatever, the only way I'm going to talk about their off-court activities is if they give me a reason to that's like, they either did something really awesome and I'm like, good on this guy for some charity stuff that he did, or, which, you know, it's not, that doesn't really happen, or they like beat their girlfriend. That's pretty much the only reason I'm going to bring up a player's personal life. And as far as the Bronny thing, for what it's worth, Bronny is absolutely an NBA player. I think it's ridiculous that we have brought ourselves to a point where we don't think that's the case. Bronny, as of right now, in his last 5 games, which in the clip that Stephen A. starts with, he fucking gets real hot and bothered over a very small sample size. So I'm going to use a very small sample size in a positive direction. over his last 5 games, playing a total of 32 minutes, which I will remind you, playing very short spot minutes in an NBA game and playing well in those minutes is extremely difficult, even if you are playing garbage time against second, third string players. You are still getting almost no time to warm up at all. And even if you shot around before, if it's at the very end of the fourth quarter, by then you've lost whatever warming up you got from that. So in 32 minutes over 5 games, he has put up 21 points on 58% true shooting. So theoretically, this is not how it works 1-to-1, but theoretically, starting minutes equals him being a 20-point scorer. It's a small sample size, but so was the sample size when you fucking brought it up initially. He started this season 1 for 14. Yeah, he's the 55th pick, and he's had very, very limited spot minutes. The 55th pick. I just want to bring that up again. He was the 55th pick in the draft. And if you don't think the level of attention that Bronny has got just because it's been completely okay to dog shit all over fucking LeBron all the time, I don't know what's wrong with you. I don't think it's acceptable in the slightest. The only reason that Bronny was the 55th pick in the draft is because he had cardiac arrest, because there was a chance he wasn't going to be on a basketball floor ever again in his life. And though he passed the physicals, teams were wary. And then on top of that, we have confirmation that Rich Paul was telling other teams not to draft Bronny. So is there a conspiracy to get Bronny on the Lakers? Did they try to ensure that happened? Sure. But was Bronny going to go undrafted, especially if he did not have that heart condition? No. Bronny has the tools to be a good NBA player. If you have watched the NBA long enough, you can see when a guy looks like he belongs out there and when a guy doesn't. And while his shots were not dropping, his decision-making, his defense, where he put himself, right spot, right time type shit, for the most part, he has been perfectly acceptable for a 55th overall pick who is the 15th man on the bench, who is playing 4 minutes in the end of garbage time. Okay? Somebody has to do that on every NBA team, and it's okay that Bronny has one of those spots out of the 30 teams. It's completely reasonable, especially considering I'm willing to bet most teams out there do not have a player who's playing in the G League as, not frequently, but playing as well in the G League when they're a 15th man as Bronny is. Bronny so far in the G League in 7 games is averaging 21.9 points, 5.5 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.9 steals on 44, 39, 79 splits with a 57% true shooting percentage, taking 8.5 3-point attempts per game. He was going to go higher in the draft. He didn't because the situation, not because he was not going to have an NBA opportunity, not because he was undeserving of an NBA opportunity. And as much as people want to go from the angle of this is nepotism, this is LeBron just influencing this situation, I think people were going to say that shit no matter what if he ended up on the Lakers. There's just no version of him ending up on the Lakers at any pick, at any situation, even if he was a fucking 2-way contract who went undrafted. There would be people who would make a big fuss of it. It is an unwinnable battle. So LeBron and Bronny looked at that and said, okay, we're not even going to bother considering this. And that was the right choice. So I absolutely think that Stephen A. Smith crossed the line. And I absolutely think that LeBron James was 100,000% justified in confronting Stephen A. Smith. I would love to think that Stephen A. may learn from this, but I'm willing to bet he won't. Because he's been through situations vaguely like this before. I know he had a huge back and forth with Kevin Durant a while ago. I think he's just going to keep doing his buffoonery because he just got rewarded with a 5-year contract that's paying him $25 million a year with ESPN. Because while they could take the approach of revolutionizing the industry and using that money for new faces who will actually bring positive coverage to the game, because he is a meme, because he gets public attention, because NBA YouTubers will make a video about him, I recognize my complicitness in all of this. he's going to keep getting paid to be a buffoon. I hope this didn't come off too much like LeBron dick riding. I really am not a LeBron guy. This video will be coming out right after a LeBron video, but that is just coincidence, all right? I didn't tell LeBron to yell at Stephen A. Smith right after I posted about him. That's just how it worked out. Yeah, I don't know. This video is kind of weird, but the relationship between media and players and how we talk about players specifically as it relates to just talking about them like they are people, it's very important to me and very upsetting to me to see the discourse be led by someone who treats it as he just does not give a fuck, just reckless. All right, that's it. See ya.